Hello everyone, welcome back to second episode of our legal podcast UnHEARD. Today we'll be getting into conversation with Mr. Surender Kumar, ADJ-cum-Member Secretary of SLSA, who will be giving us some much needed insight into the conceptual clarity and applicability of the POSH Act in today's society. So let's get started.
So first of all, sir, I would like to thank you for taking out the time for conducting this podcast with us. Today, we'll be getting into a conversation with respect to conceptual clarity and the extent of applicability of the POSH Act. Now, I think it's important that our listeners know what exactly is a sexual offence under the POSH Act. So if you could please explain.
Very good morning to all the audience. As per now this Bharatiya Nagrik Suriksha Sanhita, an offence means any act or omission which is made punishable by any law which is in force. So any offence which is committed with a sexual intent is classified as a sexual offence. Now Chapter 5 has been incorporated under Bharatiya Nagrik Suriksha Sanhita, which provides offences against women and children. It includes offence of rape, sexual intercourse during separation by husband upon his own wife, sexual intercourse by employing deceitful means, gang rapes, sexual assault under POSH Act. Chapter 2 of the POSH Act defines offences which are sexual offences against children. It includes penetrative sexual assault, aggravated penetrative sexual assault, simple sexual assault, aggravated sexual assault, and sexual harassment. So sexual harassment is basically a broad term which includes different types of offences which are done, like making physical contact advances, demand or request for sexual favours, making sexually colored remarks, showing pornography. These are classified as sexual harassment. Whereas sexual assault is a limited term which means committing physical assault with sexual intent. So POSH Act only defines sexual harassment, that is to protect women from sexual harassment at workplace.
Right. So because sexual harassment is a wide term, so the POSH Act also covers instances of sexual assault under itself, or
no? It only defines sexual assault under Section 2(9) of the POSH Act, and it covers 5 parameters.
Right.
Any unwelcome act or behavior, which could be by direct or implication,
Right.
like making physical contact advances. That means touching, kissing, groping.
Right.
That should be one-sided only.
Right.
And a request or demand for sexual favors is also part of the sexual harassment. Showing pornography by sending obscene messages on WhatsApp, sending obscene any video clips or through social media on the account of a person, and any other unwelcome physical, verbal or non-verbal conduct sexual nature, like making gestures, obscene gestures, is also part of sexual harassment.
So does it only include adult women, or does it also include minor women who have been engaged in some kind of formal?
No, under POSH Act, agri women means women of any age, whether working or not working. Even a student studying in a school would come under the definition of agreed women. If she is facing sexual harassment at the in school, that is also a part of workplace.
Right.
Like an adult woman who is working in office, either government or private, if she is facing any kind of sexual harassment, she would be the agreed woman. Even a domestic worker, if she is working in a household, even for a part-time job, she would be classified as an agreed woman.
So the POSH Act covers formal as well as informal
yes.
sectors. So we as students often go and intern at offices, or we volunteer with organizations which do not provide any kind of compensation to us for our services per se, and it's also a temporary work. So any kind of instances of sexual harassment that we as students, as interns or volunteers face in the workplace, would that also come under the ambit?
Yes. That POSH Act also defines the employee. Employee means any regular worker, even a worker who's working on an outsourced basis or contract basis, even an apprentice, even an intern who's doing internship with an institution, either government or private, or either with an NGO. That intern or the apprentice would be covered as an employee and would be protected under the POSH Act.
So why are men not covered under this act? Is there any specific provision for their protection from sexual harassment? Because the instances have been increasing over the years.
This POSH Act provides protection to the females only.
Right.
And this Act was passed by the Parliament in 2013. Earlier, the Honorable Supreme Court pronounced the judgment in Visakhapatnam of the state of Rajasthan.
Yeah.
After the brutal gang rape of one social worker in Rajasthan, she was working for the Rajasthan government to prevent child marriages. So the Honorable Supreme Court laid down the guidelines in Visakhapatnam judgment that every department, either government or private, should constitute committees so that the females can make a complaint, because it is the duty of the government, either the private government departments or the private institutions, that there should be safe and secure environment at workplaces. The Supreme Court held in the case of Vishaka that sexual harassment workplace is a form of discrimination against the women.
Yeah.
So therefore, it only provides protection to females. But even if a male faces sexual harassment at workplace, the male can make a complaint to the employer. Because as per the service rules in every department, government departments, employees are governed by some service rules. It is the duty of every employee to maintain absolute integrity, devotion to duty, do nothing which is unbecoming of government servant. If a male makes a complaint that is being harassed by a female employee, he can make a complaint to the employer, and that female employee would be governed as per the service rules.
Okay.
That can be treated as misconduct.
So as you very well pointed out that the act was brought in 2013, and since then the definition or the ambit of a workplace has widened widely. So in the last few years there has been an increasing trend of work from home. So if any female employee is working from home and any kind of sexual harassment she faces is within her home premises while during working hours, would that be governed by the POSH Act?
No, that would, if a female employee is working from home, that won't be covered as a workplace, because if a female employee is working in an office and she is being harassed at the workplace, should be protected under this act. Even if a female employee is attending some conference or meeting at some other place in continuation of the official duty, that is in discharge of the official duty, she would be protected. Even during the transport facilities, if the employer is providing transport facilities to the female employee and she is being harassed during this transit, she can make a complaint. If she has visited some other city in connection with the official duty, in discharge of the official duty, and she is facing harassment at that workplace, she would be protected. Like domestic workers, they are protected under this act. She can make a complaint to the local complaint committee, because it is mandatory for every department, either government or private, to constitute inter-complaint committees if there are 10 or more employees. If this department, government department or private institution doesn't have at least 10 employees, then the complaint would be filed before the local complaint committee.
Okay. So, if some women have been provided with a working hostel by the employer and she suffers any kind of sexual harassment in that working hostel, would that be covered under the POSH Act?
Yes, definitely. If a female has been provided accommodation in a working hostel, that hostel is being run or governed by the employer. But if she is facing sexual harassment in relation to official work, then only she would be covered. But if she is residing there and some other person who is not connected with the official work is committing harassment, then she can approach the police.
Okay, so what if she's in her workplace in an office of a company and a third person who is not exactly the employer but has some relationship with the office, with the workplace, sexually harasses her in the vicinity of that workplace? Would that be covered?
Definitely, she would be covered. Even if a visitor visits an office, either private or government, and this commits sexual harassment against any female employee, the female employee has a right to make a complaint.
So it is not limited to only employer-employee sexual harassment?
It is agreement defines any women whether working or not.
Okay. So does the act also include brothels or legal sex workers? For example, as there's a very famous red light areas in Bengal, Kolkata, which provide housing or brothels for commercial sex workers. Now, since this activity is behind closed doors, but it also the profession of the sex workers, would that be covered under the act? And if not, how can this be regulated in this sense?
Very good question. But as per section 2, which defines workplace, It means all the departments, offices which are run by the government or the private institution, NGOs, even the schools, hospitals, sports institutions, stadiums, and any dwelling house. But brothels are not recognized. But in the Honorable Supreme Court in 2022 passed a judgment, very important judgment, in case titled Buddhadev Karmaskar versus State of West Bengal. It was held that if a sex worker, female sex worker, is indulging sex work with her own consent, and if she is an adult, the police doesn't have any right to torture or harass that female this sex worker.
So, does the sexual harassment has to be between employees of different genders or sexes, or can it be by a woman towards a woman, and can it be with respect to employees at an equal status within the organization?
This POSH Act protects female from any kind of sexual harassment which is defined under Section 2N, so that the sexual harassment can be done by a person of any gender. Even a complaint can be made by the female employee against another female employee, because it defines respondent. Respondent doesn't mean only the male employee. The complaint can be made against a female employee. Suppose a female employee sends obscene messages, video clips to a female employee, that is a form of sexual harassment. So the sexual harassment can be committed by a male employee or with a female employee, or exclusive by a female employee. And if a complaint is to be made against the employer, that is to be made before the local complaint committee.
So, what exactly is the difference between the internal complaints committee and the local complaints?
Internal complaint committee is constituted in an office, that is a government office or private institution or NGO, or if it has at least 10 employees, so that timely redressal of the complaint can be made by the office.
Yeah.
If a office doesn't have at least 10 employees, the agreed woman, that is a female, can make a complaint to the local complaint committee, and the local complaint committee would conduct the inquiry. The procedure is the same.
So, we're all very well aware of the recent Ajikar Medical College case. Now, since the victim was a trainee doctor and she was undergoing her post-graduation, she was working in her workplace when the incident happened. Now, would that incident be governed by the POSH Act also, or would it only be covered by the criminal laws because of the nature of the offence?
In this case, the trainee judicial officer, medical officer, she was raped and murdered. So the FIR was lodged under the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita for commission of the murder and the rape. But it also amounts to sexual harassment at workplace, because she was working in a hospital, and a complaint can be filed by any person who has the knowledge of the offence with the consent of the legal aids. Because there is specific provision once the victim, that is the woman, has died, and the complaint can be filed after her death by the person who has the knowledge of the incident with the consent of the legal aids.
So, does the POSH Act also apply to trans women who have been working in organizations?
It only protects the women. Recently, a matter was filed on the Supreme Court of India, where it was held that transgenders are not protected as per the POSH Act. It only protects the female employees or any visitor who visits the office.
So, many times in working organizations, those who are placed at a higher position, or there's an unequal status quo, many of the higher officials imply towards women that if they indulge in any kind of sexual intercourse with them, then they can climb up the career ladder. Would that also be covered under the under the POSH Act, whether it be explicit or it may be implied by them?
Definitely. Section 3 of the POSH Act clearly provides that any implied or explicit, preferential treatment, like promoting an female employee, would amount to sexual harassment. Any implied or explicit threat of detrimental in this career of this employee would also amount to this sexual harassment. Any threat regarding the present or future employment, that she would be terminated. Giving a threat to female employee that she would be terminated if she doesn't accede to the demand of the giving sexual favors, would also come under the definition of sexual harassment.
So, how is the confidentiality of both the victim as well as the accused maintained throughout the investigation or the inquiry?
It's a very good question. Because there is specific provision under the POSH Act, Section 16 defines that the contents of the complaint even the identity of the victim or the respondent who has committed the sexual harassment cannot be revealed to any media or the newspapers. If a person discloses the contents of the complaint of sexual harassment, either through social media, he can be punished. Because Section 17 provides the punishment that the employee can be punished as per the service rules, and even a punishment of ₹5,000 is provided as per Rule 12. These POSH rules were also enacted in 2013, so a penalty of ₹5,000 can be imposed, and even the person who discloses the identity of the victim or disclose the contents of the complaint, he can be punished as per the service rule by conducting inquiry.
So
And even I would like to prize that even the contents of the complaint cannot be given under RTI Act. It is completely prohibited.
So can the committee go ahead on the basis of anonymous complaints without pinpointing
No.
the identity?
The complaint should be in writing. The internal complaint committee can adopt other measures like holding meeting with the female employees. It is very necessary that complaint should be in writing. No action can be taken on the anonymous complaint, but once I told you that the committee is required to help the victim and should instill confidence among the employees that they should come forward to file the complaint in writing.
Is it also an obligation for the committee to disclose the name of the victim to the perpetrator?
Yes, the copy of complaint would be supplied to the respondent within 7 days of receiving the complaint, and thereafter the respondent is required to submit the written statement within 10 days. And thereafter the inquiry would start by, as per the procedure contained in the POSH Act, as per the service rules, and by adopting the process of natural justice.
So is there any kind of provision for a penalty if any person or the accused misuses the identity of the victim to damage their reputation?
If there's a provision, if a false complaint is filed by a female employee, if a female employee files a false complaint against the male employee of that department or the private institution, then if the inquiry committee, after taking all entire evidence, after completing the inquiry, comes to the conclusion that it was a false and vexatious complaint, then the action can be taken against the female employee as per the service rules. So recommendation can be made to the employer that she had filed a false complaint, and it has been recorded by the inquiry committee during the inquiry that it was a false and vexatious complaint to settle personal score, and she also examined false witnesses. So action can also be taken against the witnesses who have given false evidence.
So what is the time limit for filing the complaint with respect to an instance of sexual harassment?
That's very important question. Because as per Section 9 of the POSH Act, the complaint should be filed within 90 days of the incident. If the incident is a series of incidents, different incidents, then the complaint should be filed within 90 days of the last incident. Suppose a female employee alleges that she is being sexually harassed for the last 2 years, and the last incident happened just 1 month back. So she can file the complaint within 90 days of the last incident. Even after 90 days, the complaint can be entertained by the internal complaint committee by citing reasons that the female employee was not in a position to file the complaint due to mental trauma or suffering. She was under fear. She was being threatened by the respondent that if she dared to file the complaint, he would continue harassing her.
So is there a difference in this limitation period under the POSH Act and under the criminal laws?
Yes, because as per the criminal law, a case of sexual harassment should be filed within 3 years. There is a limitation of 3 years only. Earlier, Section 468 of CRPC was the basic provision that any offence which is punishable up to 3 years, the FIR should be lodged within 3 years of that offence. But as per the POSH Act, the complaint should be filed within 90 days. The idea is that there should not be false complaint.
So does the POSH Act or the criminal laws provide for any provision for parallel proceedings to be instituted?
Definitely. The procedure contained in the POSH Act is addition to the remedy available under the common law. If a female employee who is facing sexual harassment, she can also lodge an FIR as per Section 75 of the BNS. Section 75 of the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita provides punishment for sexual harassment. She can lodge a complaint with the police that she has been harassed in an office the police would lodge the FIR and would conduct the investigation. She can simultaneously file a complaint before the inter-complaint committee. So the provisions are in addition, not in derogation of the common law.
So is there any limitation or time limit for the court to pronounce the answer upon this?
During this POSH Act, the inquiry is to be conducted by the internal complaint committee. And the internal complaint committee is required to complete the inquiry within 90 days. The limitation period is 90 days. For filing complaint is also 90 days. For deciding the complaint by the inquiry, this internal complaint committee is only 90 days. And thereafter, the employer has to take decision within 60 days. If the recommendation has been made that the respondent, who is an employee of the institution, committed sexual harassment against the female employee, and now the employer is required to decide the punishment as per the service rules within 60 days. If there is no recommendation within 60 days, the agreed person can file a complaint. Can file an appeal before the tribunal who is dealing with the service matters.
So how does the jurisdiction of any complaint committee or tribunal differ? For example, if I'm working in a workplace in the Chandigarh branch and I've been sexually harassed by someone who's working in a, let's say, Delhi branch of the same office, but the sexual harassment has taken place, let's say, either in Chandigarh or in Delhi branch. Do I go to the complaints committee of Chandigarh branch or of Delhi branch, or what tribunal?
The agreed woman, that is the female employee, should file the complaint where she is working. Suppose if female employee is working in Chandigarh branch and some male employee of the other branch, suppose from Delhi, visited the Chandigarh branch and sexually harassed the employee in the Chandigarh office, she has to file the complaint before the Chandigarh branch because she is working there. Even if the female employee visited Delhi office for some work and she was sexually harassed in the Delhi office by the employee working in a Delhi branch, even then she would be required to file the complaint in the Chandigarh office.
So what are the implications for workplaces when they do not have an established internal complaints committee?
Yes, there is a provision in POSH Act that if an employer fails to constitute an internal complaint committee, he can be punished up to fine of rupees 50,000. That is section 26 of the POSH Act. So it is the duty of every employer that there should be an internal complaint committee.
So what is the recourse available to women who are working either in the informal sector, which does not establish the complaint committee, or where the organization is too small to establish a committee?
The women who are working in unorganized sectors or in offices where there are less than 10 employees, the female employee can file a complaint before the local complaint committee. That is constituted for a one district by the district magistrate or the additional district magistrate as per section 506 of the POSH Act.
So the ICC is also required to follow the principles of natural justice while conducting any inquiry.
Yes.
How far is it actually practicable for them to do that in the workplace?
Because they are not legal experts. Because as per this POSH Act, the internal complaint committee is basically considered the employees. The presiding officer is a senior female employee of the office. So they are not legal experts. And even the legal representation is not permissible. As per Rule 7, the agreed women or the respondent, they cannot engage advocates to pursue the matter on behalf of the agreed women or to defend the respondent during the course of inquiry. So legal representation is prohibited, and the female employee or the respondent, they have to pursue the matter before the internal committee.
So as you said that the ICC members are not legal experts, they do not have the judicial knowledge. So many times women prefer appeals against the reports that have been given by the ICC and file writs against them. So do you think that introduction of a training program for the members of the ICC would be a better way to go about it in the future?
Definitely. The duty of the employer to conduct a regular training program for the internal complaint committee in Chandigarh. In the last 1 year, State Legal Service Authority Chandigarh has conducted around 35 programs for different departments. We have conducted programs Chandigarh Police, Health Department, Education Department, Environment Department, prominent schools, PGI. So we have done program for almost every department in Chandigarh. So we train these members of the internal complaint committee. We also sensitize the employees.
So does the act also require the victim to produce any kind of evidence at the time of instituting a complaint, or is it the duty of the ICC to go and find the evidence?
No, it is the as in when a complaint is filed by the agreed woman to the ICC, so the agreed woman is required to just mention the brief facts of the incident as and when she was sexually harassed by the respondent. The agreement should also mention the additional, this facts, whether the incident had been seen by some other employee, so he or she can be cited as a witness. If the incident had been recorded in a CCTV camera, it can be mentioned that this incident had been recorded in a CCTV camera, so that Internal Complaint Committee has a power of civil court. The Internal Complaint, as per Section 11 of the POSH Act, has a power of civil court. It can summon any document.
So, given the prominence of watching pornography amongst Gen Z and millennials nowadays, do you think that it significantly influences their behavior in these kind of workplaces and instills a sense of, that oh, I can do this, I can do that in a workplace, and I will not be facing any kind of repercussions? Or do you think that sex education in schools?
I think sex education should be very important in schools. As per the POXO Act, there is a requirement that regular programs should be conducted for the young children. Even we, being at SLSA, we have conducted several programs on the POXO Act, and in collaboration with different schools in Chandigarh. So we sensitize the teaching staff, non-teaching staff, that how to see the signs of a victim if he or she is being sexually harassed or sexually assaulted. As in, when a child who is sexually harassed, he would be hesitant to report the matter to the parents or the teachers. He would be socially withdrawn. He would have a difficulty in sitting or walking. He won't pay any attention during the class. So these are the basic 3-4 signs which can be identified by the teachers or the parents. Even we conduct the training programs during the PTMs.
So the government has introduced an online portal known as SheBox, which provides a platform for working women to register their complaints regarding sexual harassment. However, there has been a statistic that in the last 1 year, let's say, out of 36 complaints, only 4 complaints were with respect to sexual harassment at workplaces. So how do you think that the potential of SheBox can be utilized in the society, and what exactly is the way that it functions?
SheBox, that is Sexual Harassment Electronic Box.
Right.
So it was launched by the Ministry of Women and Child in 2017, July. But there was lack of awareness. So recently, in 2024, the Honorable Supreme Court, in a case of this Aurelino Fernandez with State of Goa, passed directions that the Ministry of Women and Child Development should create a special dashboard. So now, if a complaint is filed by any women, whether working in a government department or private department, whether organized sector or unorganized sector, the complaint would be forwarded to the concerned committee. If a female employee is working in a government department having internal complaint committee, as and when she would file a complaint on the SHE portal, the complaint would be forwarded to the internal complaint committee. If she is working in unorganized sector which doesn't have a internal complaint committee, the complaint would be forwarded to the local complaint committee.
So while we were conducting our research with respect to legal aid that is available to the victims, we only came across certain statutory authorities like the NALSA and the SLSA. So how do these authorities proceed when a complaint has been filed with respect to sexual harassment, and how exactly is legal aid made available to them?
I told you that as per the POSH Act, Rule 7 of this POSH Rule 2013, legal representation is prohibited during the course of inquiry.
Right.
But a female employee who has faced sexual harassment can seek legal assistance. She can consult the case with the DLS office or the SLSA office, but she can take the assistance. She can seek the guidance from the legal civil authorities how to draft the complaint. She can seek assistance in drafting the complaint, which is to be filed before the internal complaint committee. That can be done. If she wants to file a complaint before the police, she can take the help of the advocate in drafting the application to be submitted for the police officer in police station to lodging the FIR. The victims of sexual assault are also provided with this legal aid during the course of trial. Even these victims of POXO, because POXO is a gender neutral act, it provides protection to both boys and girls. So as per Section 40 of the POXO Act, legal aid is provided to the victims to pursue the matter in a court of law.
Thank you, sir. That will be all for today. I would like to thank you for taking out the time for us.